Welcome back to the Modern Day Way podcast, where we bring on the leaders and providers from our community, giving you the opportunity to learn from them about what has got them where they are today. Today I've got Benjamin VandenBrink with me, my brother. Dude is a stud. He is just taking life and attacking it. So, bro, thank you for coming on the podcast today. I'm excited to just have a fun conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited. I love watching and listening to your podcast and getting to see the people who are on it. So excited to be here.
Dude, yeah, it's a lot of fun to be able to have people on to bring value to their community, right? And so I'm looking forward to doing that with you today. So, man, you just won the UMSL Outstanding Senior Male Athlete Student Award, right?
Mm-hmm.
How's that feel? How'd you get there?
Yeah, man, it's good. It was exciting. I think this past cross-country season, kind of things just came together. I ended up qualifying for nationals, and I was the first one in school history to make it to that level. So I think that's kind of what got me the award. But it's been a really cool experience. The program obviously didn't exist when I was in high school. When I joined the cross-country team, I was the first class of recruits from the program, and I'll be the first class of recruits to graduate. So I'm, it's been cool to kind of grow the program, create something from nothing, with my coach and my friends and my teammates and everything. Kind of we've been able to establish a culture that's really cool. And yeah, it's been an honor to be able to be a part of it. And I'm excited to see where the program goes after I graduate. But yeah, that's the award I won recently.
Any guys coming up in the program that are just crushing it? Kind of like a little mini-me?
A mini
little mini-me?
Yeah. We got a couple freshmen, sophomores who by the time they're my age and graduating, they'll be faster than I am now, which is cool to see. That's how I want it. I have most of the school records right now, and fingers crossed, I don't have them for much longer because that means the program's getting better.
Yeah,
and I think by the time I graduate, there'll be guys who are knocking at the door,
super cool,
ready to take over.
Yeah. So when we talk about college, right, you're not like your typical college student. You were married at 19. You owned a business throughout high school and the beginning in college. We were cutting like 100 lawns a week. You were cutting like 100 lawns a week. I mean, which is crazy because you were doing that while you were running, while you were getting married, and while you were buying a house. So you were a homeowner by, I think, 20 or something like that.
Yeah,
it was young. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So married at 19, I helped you buy a house at 20. Dude, tell me a little bit about how you're juggling all this, because there's not a whole lot of folks who can handle that many different categories of life and excel in each one. So give me a little bit of info on that.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of it just comes down to kind of my personality. Mm-hmm. I think different people are suited to kind of take on different levels of stress and have different levels of ambition. I've kind of been somebody who wants to get involved in as much as I can. Mm-hmm. In high school, I tried to fill my time. I was part of all the clubs and programs. I was doing the business, doing the sports, and that made me happy. It was fulfilling to be a part of a lot of different things. And continuing to college, I mean, I think it's totally okay to take your 4 years in college and just focus on school and relationships. And that's a path that works really well for a lot of people. I had a lot of other goals outside of school that I wanted to pursue within life. Mm-hmm. And I saw an opportunity to be in college and enjoy school and not wait to pursue those other goals as well. I knew that God was calling Olivia and I to get married at a young age. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it was down to obedience and not delaying a good thing. So I just decided, and Olivia and I decided together, with obviously the input of family and friends, that the less traditional route was what was going to be best for us and our family. So kind of just went ahead and jumped into the deep end. Mm-hmm. And it was, a great decision. I don't regret any of it. I never do. A lot of times when people are young, it's just good to do as much as you can, have as many experiences as you can, work a lot, spend a lot of time doing a lot of different things and get a lot of different experiences. And then, throughout your life, as you get older, there's time to hone down and focus in on more specific things. So right now I'm just got my hands in a lot of different pots: school, running, being married, owning a house, starting a new career. And I'm really glad I'm doing all of it.
Yeah. It's been super fun to be a part of it. Had a lot of proud big brother moments.
I appreciate
right?
it.
Yeah,
Thank
proud
you.
big brother moments.
Thank you.
Those are real deals. But with you starting your new career and still working to get your master's degree in finance, and so you're a mortgage lender getting a master's degree in finance, that makes a lot of sense, right? How do you feel like your degree has affected your job? Do you think it has at all?
The MBA program at UMSL has introduced me to a lot of cool people. I think when you get an MBA, you go for the content, yes, but you also go for the relationships that you develop, classmates, professors, business owners in the community. So I think I'm getting some experience within the program on an academic level, but I also think it's led to new connections that are going to help me throughout my career as well. So that's been a really cool part of it.
Yes, a lot of connections, right? That make up the balance for your career. And so how do you feel like those connections have poured into your career so far?
I think it's too early to tell. I've been in the program for 3 months. So I feel like these are kind of relationships that'll be more of a long-term thing. As far as how it's affected me now, I've just got to meet and see a lot of cool people that have inspired me to continue, trying to crush it.
Do you feel like the master's degree at UMSL is a lot harder than the just getting to graduate college?
At this point, no, honestly. The undergraduate degree is actually more technical, and a lot of the MBA is more applied. So we study things like organizational culture, leadership, management, more theoretical things. So I don't do math anymore for my classes, but I talk a lot about people and systems and structures and organizations. And for me, that kind of makes sense more in my brain. So it's actually been, I would say, easier and more enjoyable than what I was studying before.
When you talk about systems and structures, I feel like that's something that really just falls into line with kind of who you are. When you talk about excelling in the way you have in different categories, it takes a lot of systems and structures to be able to handle those things. And so developing organization is something that I've seen you do at a really young age when you're talking spreadsheets and things like that for the lawn business, for example, right? You're super organized. And for me, I delegate to different people to keep me organized and flowing, right? And so for you have been able to establish those systems for yourself as well along the way. That's unique because a lot of people, they conquer one thing at a time as opposed to attacking multiple different, aspects in general. And so where do you feel like the organization kind of came from?
Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you're way more creative to me to begin with. Like your brain just works in a different way. You can connect different things and you're more people oriented. You're more creative than I am. For some reason, I just like things to be a little more organized, and that's kind of when my brain works. So yeah, I think that probably came from Dad.
When we're building businesses together, which is something that we've already done, we built the lawn business together. Exactly. That was fairly wildly successful for the amount of time that we're actually in it. And we were able to build businesses together because of the way our brains work differently and understanding that and then utilizing each other kind of in the right ways. And so that's been something that's been super fun to do together. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, you could go out there and talk to anybody and get them to come on as a client. And I knew their address, their price, when they got cut. It was all on a spreadsheet. Everything was organized, and they just loved to chat with you. And it's like, you need both those people in business, right? You need somebody to make the sale, and you need somebody to follow up with the details to make sure the quality service continues after the sale. So I think we work together well in that way.
And we both understood the entire time that it was all about service.
Right.
And that's the biggest factor. And I think we do have a lot to give to Dad for that. I mean, especially because he's always harped on how important service is and caring for other people and loving people as yourself, right? And so being able to do that and to grow companies is just a blessing, right? And it's a lot of memories that get to be created throughout that as well, and in unique bonding opportunities. Where do you feel like you could bring value to like your peers, because you are a lot further ahead of them in a lot of areas? And I'm not saying that to like gas you up or anything. Really, it's more of if people are listening to this right now and they're student athletes at UMSL and about to graduate, what do you feel like if there was like one little piece of advice, life advice that you've been able to take along your journey that you could pass on to them.
Get uncomfortable talking about myself. I like talking about other people more.
People want to learn from you though. And so,
I'd say don't limit yourself by having small beliefs about what you're capable of. Mm-hmm. If you tell yourself, you're just going to be an average person, you're going to be an average person. We need average people in the world. There's nothing wrong with that necessarily. But if you're somebody with a lot of ambition and high amounts of goals, don't limit your belief of what you can achieve. And, the sky's the limit after that. Who's to say you can't start a business in college and be an athlete all at once,
Set higher goals.
Set higher goals and then have true belief that you're actually going to be able to accomplish those.
Mm-hmm. Be too stupid to give up.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I heard that recently and I've loved it. I've kind of been thinking about it a lot lately, is be too stupid to give up. And
just be stubborn. If you don't get it the first time, you're young. If I failed in business and I'm 22 years old, I have more experience than another 22-year-old, and that's the only negative side of that equation. You know what I mean? I've failed and I've learned something, and I think that goes the same for everybody else that's in my age group and even in your age group. Be too stupid to give up and just be stubborn and keep trying again.
Get rid of the fear of failure.
Right. Get rid of the fear of failure and treat failure as a learning experience.
Treating failure as a learning experience is huge. Mm-hmm. If you can treat failure as a learning experience when you're young, it's life-changing because you're keeping yourself in a learning mindset, and that's something that I always try to do. I'm always trying to get more coaching, more intelligence in any aspect of life that I can, and I want to be able to learn from anybody that I can. And I know personally that's something that's excelled me and excelled you because we're a student. If you go through life and you're always in the mindset of a student and always trying to learn and then apply, but then being able to really balance that as well is so key, because when you are only learning and not applying, all you're doing is learning. If you're learning and then applying over time, but doing it hand in hand, you're actually progressing.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, biology tells us that something stops growing, it starts dying. So if you're not learning, if you're not improving, you're not growing, then, there's no such thing as stagnation. At that point, you're going in the wrong direction.
So biology, you went to Collegiate School of Medicine in bioscience, but
I don't like biology that much, by the way. I like being outside in nature, but that's about as much biology as I do.
I know that's why I segued there like that. So Collegiate School of Medicine and bioscience, but a finance degree. Mm-hmm. It's a little different.
Yeah. So, I'm super incredibly grateful for my high school experience. I think a lot of people have bad experiences in middle school and high school, and I feel incredibly blessed to have just fond memories of those times of life. Collegiate school was a great fit for me. It's been a good fit for Aaliyah, our sister who's there right now. And also just a great positive influence on, I think, our neighborhood and the city. But for me, it wasn't necessarily about medicine or bioscience or biology or what the focus of that school academically was. It was more so the people that were there, the diversity, the different backgrounds that really expanded my worldview and kind of broadened my horizons just from the people that I got to have as classmates. And I'm super grateful for that opportunity. Coming in to that school every morning and seeing people that looked different than me just expanded my vision, my worldview. And, I feel like I learned a lot from that experience.
Learned a lot from other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Collegiate school has gotten a lot of accomplishments and a lot of awards in the past few years, and they're a relatively new school, right?
Yeah, I think they're probably 8 or 9 years old at this point, but they're one of the top St. Louis public schools in the city, one of the top schools in the state of Missouri, have top ACT scores, and they're a public school in St. Louis, which a lot of people have this idea that all public schools in St. Louis are have poor academics, are dangerous, and they're not a place where you want to send your kid to. And I could not have had any more different of an experience than that when I was there. So I have a lot to be thankful for.
Why do you feel like that is?
Why do I feel like St. Louis public schools get a bad rap?
No, why do you feel like collegiate's different?
culture and leadership. That school was founded with a very clear vision and a very narrow focus to help students who are interested in becoming doctors in the city of St. Louis learn everything they needed to know to get accepted into a great college. So when you start with a narrow focus and a strong vision, you can create a culture where success comes naturally for the students who are there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I love having that clear vision, but being able to apply that clear vision to a whole bunch of kids from 14 to 18 is not an easy thing to do.
Not at all. No, I was just one of those kids who was between 14 and 18 when I was there too. So I can't say all that much about how it worked, but I think a lot of it's great teachers and good leadership in terms of faculty and staff.
What did you see from the leaders at that school, and how were they able to apply that vision to the teachers? And did you feel like each teacher kind of was able to spread that vision onto the students?
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think the teachers that I had in high school really believed that every one of their students could be successful. And they had high standards for our achievement. They weren't going to let us just slack off because they knew what we were capable of achieving. And I think that has a huge impact on people's success. When you're a 14, 15-year-old student, and maybe you don't have a personal belief that you can be successful, but now all of a sudden your teacher comes and tells you, I'm going to hold you to high standard because I know what you're capable of. Now you start believing that about yourself as well. And I think I've seen that a lot with my classmates and the kids at that school.
Being held to a higher standard is incredible. It really does push somebody, and it makes somebody upset initially, right? Because they're not wanting to do something up to this standard that they're being held to, but then they get into the real world, and that standard is now applied to everything that they do. So seeing that in high school, and I kind of had a similar thought as well when I heard you were going to a St. Louis public school. I mean, I was in San Antonio, but you think about the demographic there, and it doesn't sound like something that you've just described to me. It's so cool and so unique and fun to hear about as well. And hearing about Aaliyah, our sister's similar experience going there has been a lot of fun. So shout out to Collegiate School of Medicine and Bioscience for what they're doing in South St. Louis. Super cool. Super cool. So you are a mortgage lender and you're crushing it. You've got this super cool ability to get people really low interest rates, even though you've just started in the industry. And I think part of that is to be given to great mentorship. But another piece of that is really your ability to look at numbers and create a plan. So where do you feel like your skill set's applying in your job?
I think I have a lot to be thankful for, and that I have a degree in finance. That's been helpful for me. I can think back to courses that I took in college, just a couple of years ago, that I apply every day in work as well now. Just simple theories like, how the market functions, and then I kind of have personal finance as like a little hobby of mine. I like studying it as well. So I can bring those kind of two interests together and apply it to my job, kind of help people understand the broader picture of how a mortgage fits into their overall financial world, and kind of what it's useful for, what things, might be smart strategies to implement when it comes to having a mortgage, and what things to steer away from. When it comes to those interest rates, I think I kind of probably use a bit more programs than some other lenders would. Being on the younger side of my career, I have more time to devote to each of my clients, right? Because to be honest, I'm not doing as much volume as some of these bigger, older lenders. So that means I have more time per client that I work with, so I can go out and find them different grants, different programs to bring those interest rates down, to bring those closing costs down, and kind of just negotiate for what's in their best interest.
You care, which is really cool. It's really cool to see a mortgage lender that cares. A lot of them are just checking boxes, right? They set a interest rate to whatever it may be, get their commission, they're done. And you've really dove off the deep end with wanting to serve people and get them the absolute best terms they can on the mortgage lending side. And that's something that's super valuable to me, because I really care about my clients, and I really care that they get the best deals possible. And so to be able to work with you hand in hand and get them to the closing table in that facet is really fun and exciting as well to see them succeed. So you were going to be a financial advisor, but you segued into mortgage lending. You must obviously feel like a home is a great investment. If that was kind of the segue there. Can you harp on that a little bit and on why you feel like it's such a great investment?
I think there's a couple different ways in which a home is a good investment. If you compare it to renting, you don't put your money somewhere every month and have it disappear. You get to build equity in something that you own, that's an asset that appreciates over time. So kind of a no-brainer in my mind to own versus to rent. You're buying something over time that you get to keep, live in, and then likely sell for a big return when it's time to move on to the next house. So I think if you consider renting versus owning, kind of a no-brainer in my mind. Obviously, there's other ways that you can use real estate truly as an investment when you think about rental properties, investment properties, portfolios. You can use that to generate cash flow. You can also use that to generate equity. You can borrow against your equity and use it to acquire more properties. Real estate has a unique amount of leverage that you can access when compared to other types of investing. Because we use mortgages as a debt tool, we can leverage the amount of equity that we can achieve when you compare it to the amount of cash that it takes to buy a property. If you think about investing in traditional stock market, you pay $1 of cash to buy $1 of asset, and then you hope that asset goes up. When you think about real estate, you put 20% down, you use 20 cents to buy $1 of asset. And now you have more appreciation potential compared to a lesser degree of cash that's required to get in that door. So I think that's a cool tool. Obviously, you have to be somewhat conservative in certain times about how much leverage you take on. But in real estate, it's pretty well accepted that leverage is how you generate large returns.
That analysis you just gave right there of, say if you put 5% down on a property, that's 5 out of 100, right? And so that's a crazy segue there. So what if that property went up 5% every single year, which historically they do go up 5% every year. So you just got your 5% down in appreciation over that 1 year, which I don't think that there's any stocks that are going to do that for you.
Not unless you're using a lot of crazy options to get a lot of leverage.
Exactly. And that's the way I looked at it. And one of the reasons why I invest as well is because of that appreciation. And when you look at it from not even like a long-term buy and hold, which is really the smarter investment move, but also flip in real estate. You can get loans to buy that property 100% and do the renovations for it. And then you can sell it and make money. But it's all about the connections you have in order to do that. But real estate is such a unique investment, and the margin for error is typically a lot higher than what you're going to see in other investments as well because of that appreciation aspect. And so when you look at cash flow, and I tell a whole lot of these first-time investors right now, you're not buying real estate because of cash flow. You're
right now.
You're going to get a 7% interest rate. You're going to break even on your payment likely, but what you're going to get is that appreciation. And so if you're cash flowing, that's cool, right? It's cool, and you're going to do that eventually. But for now, look at that 5% every year. Because if you buy a $200,000 property and it goes up 5% every year, you just made 10 grand. And if you cash flowed on that property, say even like $600, you're still not making that much money every single year.
Nope.
And so the money is made off of appreciation. So as far as interest rates go, talk to me a little bit about what you see happening over the next 6 months. Tell me the future, Benjamin.
I wish I could just look into a glass ball and know what the Federal Reserve was going to do about interest rates. I think coming into 2024, there was kind of a consensus that we might see between 3 and 6 interest rate cuts. We can say now that's not going to happen, right? Inflation is not cooling off as quickly as expected. If we get 1 interest rate cut in 2024, I'd be grateful for that. I think likely we're looking at no cuts. The Federal Reserve met yesterday. Chairman Powell kind of said interest rates are going to stay where they're at. Inflation's not cooling off as quickly as they expected it to. I think it's unlikely that we see another rate increase. I think it's just more of the same for now. So kind of hanging out at these higher interest rates with still an expectation that 1 to 2 years from now, we start to see some decreases in interest rates as inflation cools off.
That'd be nice.
It would be.
Yeah. That'd be really nice. So Chairman Powell, can you tell us who that is?
Yeah. So there's this thing called the Federal Reserve, and they have a dual mandate to keep inflation steady and unemployment low. And they create economic policy for the U.S. The tool with which they affect economic policy is pretty much interest rates, what's called the federal funds rate. There's a board of people, and Chairman Powell is the president of the board.
What's happening with inflation now opposed to last year?
Yeah, it's cooling off a bit, just not as much as expected. We're at 3.5%. Last year we were 5%. So, we're seeing declines in inflation, but again, with the Fed targeting 2%, we're not at the number where we need to be at in order to start cutting rates.
Okay. So when inflation does settle down quite a bit, what happens with interest rates?
Yeah. So when inflation comes down, the Federal Reserve will decrease interest rates because at that point it'll be safe to stimulate more growth within the economy.
Okay. And as far as growth within the economy, where do you see that we're struggling right now, primarily?
I think when it comes to major corporations, they're doing fine. We're still seeing record profits. I think where the difficulty is felt is more so in the daily consumer, the average person. Inflation hurts your budget a lot more if you make $50,000 a year than if you make $250,000 a year, because every dollar is more important to you if you're making $50,000 a year. Inflation hurts poor and middle income people more than anybody else. So I think where a lot of the pressure is felt right now in the economy is to that lower and middle class income earners who notice it when they go to the grocery store and their bill's higher than it's supposed to be, or what they would want it to be, or what it has been previously. When their homeowner's insurance is higher than it ever has been and increasing at a record rate, that hurts people who earn less money more than it hurts corporations and wealthy people. So I think there's kind of the squeeze on the middle class right now that's really been caused by inflation, and I think a lot of people are feeling that.
How would you give some advice to somebody in that lower to middle class right now to get through the next couple of years without having to feel like they are really getting rid of significant, important portions of their life?
It's going to be difficult, and there's going to be sacrifice that's required. That's going to look like creating a budget and sticking to that budget and not going out as often, not buying the expensive foods at the grocery stores. Potentially it means not contributing to retirement like they should be, which that just creates more problems down the line, unfortunately. But sometimes it's necessary. I'd say stay away from credit card debt. Don't increase your monthly obligations by taking on debt at 25% interest rate. If you can avoid it at all costs, do not take on credit card debt. You're just going to pay for it later, and you're going to pay for it a lot more than when you bought it the first time.
Quite literally going to pay for it later.
Yep. And it's going to cost you more after you paid 25% interest on it.
What's the average income in the United States right now?
Oh, man.
I know you know the answer to this.
Probably like 76,000. I don't know. Fact check me. You got a laptop, right?
Yeah, I think it's less than that. Actually,
Is it?
I think it's like mid 50s.
Between 50 and 75.
Between 50, which is unique when you look at, I don't know how long it was ago. It was like maybe a little over a decade, where 300,000 now is what 100,000 was then. Something similar to that. I remember reading a blog the other day that said something like that. And it's crazy to when you look at it from that perspective of, okay, so if I'm making $100,000 a year right now, it'd be the same thing as my parents making $300,000 a year when I was growing up. And so, or no, I said that kind of backwards. So it'd be the same thing as me making $300,000 a year now and then making $100,000 a year back then. But it's kind of intimidating when you look at it from that perspective.
Yeah.
I
mean, I know a lot of people my age that are getting out of college right now, and it is not the same scenario as it was when their parents graduated, and they're kind of scared by that. I'm a little intimidated by that, I think we should be. I think there's a healthy amount of intimidation when you see inflation high and wages stagnant, what's the direction we're headed in?
$63,000.
Right between the middle of us. I said 72. You said 50. Call it even in the middle. 63.
Wow. Okay. Well, 63,000. That's wild. Where is a area in your life where you're looking to grow over this next year?
Great question. I'm trying to be a sponge right now when it comes to this business and learning everything that I can and getting established, developing relationships with new realtors, serving more clients. So I just want to soak in as much knowledge as I can, gain as much experience as I can, and serve happy clients along the way.
Happy clients along the way. Happy clients after closing.
Yep.
Yeah. That's the goal. So as far as what makes you who you are, would you say like you've got core values that create who you are, that you've got different motivations behind those core values that have pushed you? What would you say a couple of your like main core values are?
I'd say I am who I am because first and foremost, I'm a child of God. And so living from that perspective of being an image bearer and understanding that I'm loved and saved and redeemed, that's not something that any of us should take for granted on a daily basis. And it affects the way I wake up every morning. Hopefully it affects the way I treat people and the way I interact with others. So first and foremost, my core values come from a Christian worldview and a relationship with Jesus.
I love that. So
at least that's what I hope and what I strive for.
What you strive for. What you strive for. Where do you feel like that was created in you?
It's an interesting question, right? How any of us become the people that we are, why we choose to believe the things that we believe. I think some of it can be contributed to the family that we grew up in. Having great parents that were role models that taught us from a young age how to live a good, fulfilling life. And then other parts of it have come from, personal conviction about things that I believe and a relationship with Jesus that I've, experienced personally as well.
Awesome. Making it your own, making your faith your own is something that I feel like a lot of people who grow up in church, they have a struggle with creating a faith of their own. And it's been fun to see that you've been able to do that really well.
Especially us as pastors' kids. I mean, it would have been really easy for us to just kind of take it surface level, what mom and dad taught us our whole lives, and never make it something that we, were personally involved with. And so for you to mean the same, it's been awesome to see you kind of take that foundation of what we learned as kids and then apply it to the life that you've created and make it something that is yours personally.
It's fun. It is. And it's something that for me personally, when I was growing up, I definitely fell away from the church because I didn't feel like it was my own. And then being away from that environment gives you the opportunity to really look into your life as a picture and take those things that you learned and then create your own world, right? And your own mindset behind it as well, right? Your own faith, which is beyond valuable because everybody has to have their own unique relationship with God. And so Really, really fun to hear that from you in that way. Taking in everything as a sponge is awesome. And a goal of learning. I love that. But you've got to have other goals than just to learn a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Where do you see your mortgage lending career here in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think for my first year in business, I want to close 4 deals a month. So that looks like 48 loans in my first year of production. And I think that kind of sets me up in a position to where I can just continue growing on that every year. And from there, I think if I could double my production volume every year for the first 3 years of my career, that's going to set me up to be in a really cool position in 5 years from now. So that's ambitious, but that's kind of a path that I've set out for myself. Start with 4 a month for the first year, hopefully close 48 loans this year, and then 96 and on as I continue.
Who'd you get that double from? Was that from me or Chris?
Probably both.
Both?
Yeah. Because you told me, every year for the first 3 years you were in real estate, you sold twice as much the next year as you did the year before. And I think Chris was probably even something crazier than that. I think, he just started out red hot and just continued to grow. But I think that's, he's a bit of a unique situation.
So just to put it in
Chris is not your average guy.
No, I don't think any of us are.
Neither are you. But
I was about to say, I mean,
that's not what I was
mortgage
meaning.
loans and houses, when you're selling houses, is a lot different. But
Yeah.
And that was something that I've done as well, is been able to double my production every single year,
Right.
which has been awesome. And it's super fun to see you wanting to do the same thing with that. And I know you're going to do it, no problem. But as far as mortgage loan officers go, so for example, Del Mar Mortgage, which is the mortgage loan company that you're at, you're over 50%, right, of the mortgage loan officers. You're higher than that. Where are you falling right now in category with that? And it's your first year.
I'm middle of the pack right now in terms of production for the company, which I think when you think about, that's a lot of loan officers who've been in the industry for 5, 6, 7 years. So that's a place where I'm happy to be right now. Not content, but I think it's pretty cool.
Super cool. Super cool. When you talk, yeah, exactly. When you talk about the folks who've been in the industry for a long time and you're already, your production's higher than what they're at currently, it's fun to see. So what's an average mortgage loan officer closing right now a month?
And I don't pay attention to the averages because I don't want to be average. I just pay attention to the guys who are crushing it. They're closing way more than me.
That's what I was hoping to hear.
Yeah.
That's what I was hoping to hear.
So I couldn't tell you more than, probably about what I'm closing, I'd say, if I had to guess. But I look at the guys who are closing 20, 30, 40 deals a month, and I'm looking at those guys. What are they doing? I'm not looking at the guys who are doing what I'm doing because I'm already there.
Exactly. So not your so average Joe kind of thing.
I mean, if your goal is to grow, you need to look at people who are more successful than you. That's how I think about it.
Absolutely. That's what I do. I personally look at guys who have been in the industry for 20 years that are absolutely crushing it and say, hey, what are you doing? And one of the reasons that I hire business coaches is because when you can't learn from a book the way you can learn from an individual. And so I've got a couple of super awesome business coaches that I utilize that have progressed me in ways that I can't even fathom, right? That I can't. There's no dollar amount you can put to having a good mentor, to having a good coach, to having somebody who's always in your corner telling you kind of what you need to do when you have a question.
Yeah, and keeping you accountable as well to make sure you're doing what you need to do in order to accomplish the goals that you've set out to achieve.
Yeah, accountability is huge. It's huge, and it's not harped on enough because people hate it. But it's definitely when you have somebody that can hold you accountable, and you're going to be there as a student and listen and constantly wanting to be learning, which is that sponge analogy right there. It's a beautiful place to be in because you're constantly in a place of growth. Dude, it was a blast to, kind of get to, I knew a lot of these things already. You're my brother.
Yeah.
But it's also fun to be able to just kind of go over it and have that conversation with you. So I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm looking forward to doing one of these again next year and hearing about how you doubled your numbers and you were able to serve twice as many people year over year and just keep bringing value.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate you. I love being partners with you in business, and it's great being your brother. So thanks for having me on the podcast today. Great conversation, and looking forward to lots more good conversations in the future.
Likewise, brother.
Thanks, man.
Let's keep crushing it. If you have not already followed our YouTube channel or Spotify, please do. We are looking forward to continuing bringing you guys value, and just love it when you guys give us some feedback. So thank you again for tuning in, and we're excited to see you again next week.